Welcome back, everybody. Derek Sue, your East Oakland advocate. Well, today I'm going to talk about a very serious subject that goes back and affects every family out there. And that topic is domestic violence, DV. And um, I've been on both sides of that this particular topic. I, I've helped women get out of very dangerous domestic violence situations, and then I myself have been a victim of domestic violence myself, and I'll talk about mine. As a lot of you know, I was dating a woman. This was just before me becoming homeless, and she stole one of my guns, and she was very unethical. Much like my first wife. My first wife was extremely unethical, and we'll talk about that because she was also a perpetrator of domestic violence. My first wife, this girlfriend that I was seeing at the time, was a perpetrator of domestic violence, and I'll talk about some of those signs about that. But I want to talk about also uh, historically for me, my mother was a victim of domestic violence in her first uh, marriage, and in that first marriage, my half brother Creighton was created. He was born in 1944, and I don't know firsthand, but I can only take it uh, the stories from my mother about her first marriage to Harvey. And Harvey, a lot of people say, well, little Asian guys, they're harmless, they're not going to hurt anybody. No, domestic violence has no boundaries, and size, culture does not matter. And my mother was a victim of domestic violence. She didn't put up with it, and within 2 years of my brother being born, she divorced Harvey, and we have pictures of Harvey actually being served the papers, and it was a family event, and the law enforcement side. I mean, Harvey was really stupid at being a perpetrator of domestic violence, since my mother's dad was an Alameda County sheriff deputy, or deputy sheriff, and he carried guns, on him. My grandfather, my mother's dad, and Harvey was violent, away from when he had my mother away from her parents, and um, shortly after the divorce, help protect my mother, he was also violent and beat my brother Creighton, and so my half brother also has memories of or had memories of the violence that went on behind closed doors, and that is so common. And then uh, the stress of um, becoming homeless, or possibly becoming homeless, adds even more pressure to that, because as a site manager for the sanctioned site that I had to oversee up to 63 people at one time. And out of those 63 people, I had 4 couples that were in a domestic violence situation. And I tried my best to do what I could, and especially with the security detail that I had at the time. Uh, and we always tried to talk it out, and tried to be non confrontational about stuff, but then it rarely ever goes that way. And so um, the one time that I did really have to step in, um, the husband literally was on top of his wife and had both his hands across her throat. And not only that, she was pinned on the floor with his entire shouldered body weight coming down on her neck, just like this, with his hands. I screamed at him to let go. He didn't let go. Next thing I did, he was seeing stars and bleeding, and he let go. And then that's when I took actions into my own hands, because I saw what he is capable of doing and what has happened to this person in the past when there was an intervention by Oakland Police Department. And I watched this guy beat up 6 Oakland police officers until they finally got a nightstick out and broke his leg. That's what took him down. And I tell you, this guy had no fear whatsoever. And when I dealt with him, I had warned him just the day before that the reason why that I moved, his wife, closer to where I was is so that I could hear him screaming and what was going on over there. And so anyway, I gave him advance warning about what was going to happen if I had to intervene. Next morning, wasn't even 5 o'clock yet, and he started up. And so, but anyway, didn't go well for him. He ended up literally looking like as one of my residents said, he looked like a victim out of a horror movie. I said, no, he is the horror movie. And she says, yeah, you know what? You're right. He is the horror movie here. And so he left a blood trail. I mean, he left a pouring blood trail. And I told the police, I said, just follow the blood trail. Eventually, you're going to find a body because he's going to leak out. And so they didn't find him. He did end up at the hospital. They arrested him, but I did a pretty good number on him, because I got pictures of him shortly after he was arrested, and then he was brought back to be identified by me, so that the charges would be filed, because I was filing assault charges. I was also filing domestic violence charges for the victim, because unfortunately the victim was not able to talk to the police. She literally was almost choked out, and this wasn't the first time. This was like the 6th time, and this is the only time that I was able to intervene, and that was because I brought her, sheltered her closer to where I was, so that I actually could hear. Whereas before, a lot of times what domestic violent people do, they try and get you separated from the herd, separated from your friends, separated from your family. And that's very common. And they know that once they get that separation, it's hard for the victim to reach out for help without being noticed. And so that's one of the first things. And that was one of the first things that about my first wife. She was very convincing at who I should be hanging around with, or who I shouldn't be hanging around with. And I had a lot of friends of color at the time. And my first wife, she was Caucasian, as was my second wife. She was Caucasian, but very different. But the first wife, she was very racist. I should have taken the clues early, because she would make comments about Hispanic race. Very negative comments about there. Then occasionally she would make comments about me and my little slanty eyes. So should have taken that. She was a racist, and after she had gotten the ring on me, and we had our marriage license and everything, she got really cruel. And she said, "Now I own your ass." And things are going to change. And things did change very quickly and very negatively. And then also, uh, you know, I tried to salvage the marriage, but there was no salvaging. You know, she made it really clear. I had to get her. I mean, falling down drunk one night in order to extract the information that I truly needed. Number one, she had cheated on me. I already knew that. I had the documented proof and threw it in her face. But also the bad investments, where we bought the house. She wanted a house so bad and at any cost. And she had no means to do that because she came from a lower positioned family that didn't have money, and uh, they were just renters, and that was the best that they could do at the time. Whereas myself, I had money. I I was driving around brand new 1981 Datsun 280ZX 2x2, the really nice one. And at the time, that was one of a very expensive car. I could almost buy a Porsche for what I bought that Datsun 280ZX for. And then shortly after that, I had a brand new KZ 1000, another $3,000 motorcycle at that time. Nowadays, that sounds so cheap because you can't even get a 550 for that now. And then I also drove another sports car, a 1982 Z28 Camaro, when the body style first changed to the more boxy style that they had in 1982. And that was a real piece of shit car, too. I really hated that. But anyway, they also gaslight you. I mean, there's a lot of gaslighting, saying that you don't know what you're talking about. First wife did that, and so did that crazy girlfriend, that I was seeing, the one that stole my gun. And so those are two of the main things that are very common in an abusive relationship. So the gaslighting, isolating you from friends and family, uh, insulting you to your face, which is what she did to me. And then she's yelling. She was constantly trying to create strife and blaming me for things that what are you talking about? She said I was coming home late. I said, I was working two jobs at the time, and so you know, sometimes driving from Oakland to Hayward, where our home was, there might be a little traffic, and so your variance is somewhere around 15 minutes, and it's not like I was an hour or 2 hours late or anything. And she would blame me with cheating on her. And I was like, are you kidding? I just got off my other job. I I drove straight home here, and I don't have time for that. And so it was things like that um, go on. Or um, she's yelling at me because I'm not cleaning up the house. Well, hell, I'm not even home to make the mess. She's the one making the mess and can't get any dishes to the kitchen. So, I was also her housemaid, and so there are things that were just so I couldn't grasp that somebody who says that they loved me would do this to me. And I get that with a lot of the ladies that say that when I've helped them out. and then shifting the blame. You uh, I'm not going to talk about that one. Or they act very jealous, and so um, out of the women that I dated, a lot of people noticed that I dated outside my race, and so my both of my marriages were interracial marriages. My first wife, she was Caucasian, and then my second wife was Caucasian, but very different. Both from the similar uh, parts of the country. The first wife, she was originally from Michigan, and my second wife, she was from the state of Wisconsin. So very similar uh, area that I chose for uh, dating. And one of the things that my mother always said, why are you dating outside your race here? Why can't you date a nice little Asian woman? I said, well, number one, this was back in high school, and I have a huge family back then, and um, quite literally, if you opened up the school yearbook and looked at the Chinese population, and then we go back and compare it to my lineage. Well, in Oakland High School, from the years of 1975 to 1978, 10%, 10% of the Oakland High student body was related to me by blood. Yeah. The one Asian female that I dated that was not related to me, she wasn't even a citizen. She was from Canada. She was from Vancouver, and her mother moved down here for whatever reason, and then the next three Asian women. I even dated a Filipino woman, female, at at Oakland High, and even the Filipino girl ended up being my first cousin. So yeah, that's why I didn't date Asian women. And then the one Asian woman that I did see off and on, more as a friend, because I worked with her when I uh, was at the tropical fish store, because during my uh, uh, junior and senior year in Oakland High, I worked part time down at a tropical fish store called Oakland Aquarium, and it was right there across the street from the Union 76 station and the 7-Eleven near Mandana. And right next door back in the day was Sirloin, and it was a steakhouse right there, and so Paul was the owner. Anyway, uh, what can I say? Domestic violence is horrible, and um, when I was managing the site here, overseeing all of these couples, it was a job. And as I lost my security, it became more difficult to enforce a lot of different things. And like I said, even I myself was a victim of domestic violence through a dating, and I just got her off of a dating app, and so I I just swore off dating. I'm getting too old for that kind of stress. Number one, medically, I can't do any of the things that a typical male does because of all of my cancer treatments, and then the complications that came about after that, and then also I'm not one that if I take my clothes off, I got that big colosophy bag, which is pretty ugly and pretty nasty. So, yeah, I don't need that. And like I told a lot of people, I said, if I get lonely, hey, I'll get a dog. I have Mama, 110-pound American Bulldog. I don't have a problem. She always loves me and takes care of me, watches out for me, and I don't have to worry about her stealing my gun. I don't have to worry about her stealing from me or trying to stab me in the back. Uh, so, dog is my dog is a lot safer than dating a lot of the females that are out there, because there are a lot of females that are just out for the money. My first wife, after like I said earlier, I got her falling down drunk in order to extract that uh, piece of information that she actually had no intentions of having any slanty-eyed babies with me, and she wanted to get a house out of this, and well, she got her house. I got bankruptcy uh, because it was a horrible deal, and the home was only worth $99,000 back at the time, and then uh, her parents' realtor convinced me to sign for $149,000 purchase on this home. And I tried to explain to everybody, well, don't you understand this increases the taxes, this increases all the expenses. And my parents were saying, you're absolutely insane for if you go forward with that purchase, because that is a really bad deal. And on top of that, paying 15% interest. Yeah, you folks are complaining about 6 and 7. That's nothing. Pay 15. Yeah, I had to work 2 full-time jobs almost uh, to keep up with the mortgage, the insurance. And then on top of that, I had to fix the kitchen. The kitchen was outdated. So there was another $25,000 loan that went into that house that put me even further, buried me so deep. You know, my eyeballs couldn't even see the surface. But um, when I confronted the first wife, told her I was leaving, marriage was over and everything. Oh yeah, she was threatening all sorts of stuff. I said, look, you can try whatever you want. I'm not paying another dime. You want this house? You go get your parents and move them in and have them pay the mortgage, because I can't do it. I quit the second job, and so and I filed for bankruptcy, and at the same time I filed for divorce right after filing for the bankruptcy, and so screwed her pretty good, because she no longer had the golden goose that was paying all the bills, and that forced her to also get a second job, and her mother passed away from cancer during all of this exchange, unfortunately, and her mother and I got along fine, and unfortunately, the first wife, told me that I was not invited to the funeral. So that's how nasty this woman was. And then she ended up. She was so crooked. I mean, she broke rules and laws like you wouldn't believe. And she ended up losing her paralegal license here in California, and then could not get employment of any form in California because she also got convicted of a lot of stuff. And I can't go into that. I'm not going to go into that, but it was substantial. And she actually even moved out of California. She moved to Arizona. How do I know she moved to Arizona? Because she keeps coming up on my background checks for my federal firearms license renewal. So I know where she is. I know what's happening. I know her background. and I'm glad I don't have any contact with her. So anyway, domestic violence is a horrible situation. There's a lot of trauma that goes on, and my mother was a victim of domestic violence, and then with her second marriage to my dad. Uh, I have early memories of my dad being angry about something in the middle of the night. I remember it was like 1 in the morning. Is He worked late and he worked a liquor store job, and I don't know if this was around the time that he was held up and he was robbed at his evening job, and he ended up shooting the robber, and the robber died. So that affected my dad a lot because number one, he's Buddhist, and so they don't believe in taking a life, and so that affected my dad. That may have been the reason why he threw the lamp in the bedroom across the room. Because my crib, I was, like I said, I was very young, and my crib was in their bedroom, and uh, I remember crying, and I managed to get out of my crib, and I hid underneath my crib. Police came, a police officer came, talked to my dad, and after that, things, you know, never happened again. Uh, and so that was, I thought that would be the end of uh, domestic violence for me, because I saw it up close and personal. I have memories of it. I don't remember, like I said, all the things around it. But then I started dating, and my second wife, she was um, a victim of not only domestic violence, but she was also raped when she was uh, a student at Cal Berkeley, during the 70s, and she was one of the rape victims of what they called the stinky rapist back then during the 70s. And so my second wife had a lot of insecurities when I met her, and her husband that she actually had a child with. He was very violent. He was an outlaw biker, had a anger management issue, and also carried guns. And he had friends out of state that would mail uh, unregistered guns to uh, Pete, and it was scary. And so anyway, when I first met my second wife, she told me about, the dangers that may in may happen, because her last two male suitors that were dating her, very well to do, Porsches and stuff, because she was a model, and she's also an aspiring, at that time. She already had her internship completed for psychiatry, and then because of, the sick puppies that she said, that's what uh, scared her out of psychiatry. There were so many sick individuals, and she did her internship at San Quentin. And as pretty as she was, she's tall, blonde hair, blue eyes. Yeah, and so she changed her career path again. She was a model, a runway model. Then she was right on the verge of getting her doctorate for psychiatry, and then she said no. And then she went into law, and that's where I met her. She was already completing up a significant amount of what she needed. She was becoming an intellectual properties attorney, and She turned out to be one of the best here on the West Coast and one of the most sought after. She came through the UC system-wide system, and uh, she she gained a lot of her training and specialized um, knowledge through UC system right here, and uh, it's called the Office of the President, University of California, Office of Technology Transfer. And so she was there a number of years and became the go-to expert to enforce all of the different contracts and licenses. And she was actually background checked and uh, um, gained her federal security clearance through UC Berkeley because she was dealing with so much cash and money enforcing patents, copyrights, and contracts. But uh, her husband was very violent, and he proved himself to be very violent also from the very first time we met. It got to be very confrontational, and in fact, um, there was some blood. Believe me, there was some blood, and there was a gun drawn. I drew my gun on him because he he was going for his. I didn't shoot him. There was no shooting, but yeah, there was a very stern warning, and also he also feared me from then on because one of the things after uh, my second wife and I divorced, Pete and I, we did talk, and he said, you know, I always respected you. I always knew you were dangerous from the beginning. How I knew that was because years before I even met you, I fucked with this little Japanese guy. I fucked with him good, and then he 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 lowered the boom on me. He said, and Pete told me, he said, that little Japanese guy put such an ass whipping on me. The next day when I woke up, even my hair hurt. So that's he gave me instant respect just from that early meeting. I said, yeah. I said it was a good thing you didn't go for it because you know, I don't know what that little guy knew. I said, but at the time, as a Wing Chun master, I would have taken your ass so far apart. People will be finding you in parts of Alameda and Burlingame. He didn't mess with me too much all during the time that my ex and I we were married. His son didn't respect him very much either. The only thing that uh, the son liked about Pete was all of the guns that Pete had, all the illegal guns. I mean, there were so many illegal guns it wasn't even funny. And the one that I always admired that Pete had was this. You know, the only thing that he had that I really admired was this one cane um, shotgun, and it held a single shot 410 shotgun, and it looked like an ordinary walking cane, and it's illegal as heck. Uh, Simply twist the cane loop, and a trigger pops down. Then you just pull it up, pull the trigger, boom! It's a 410 shotgun, single shot. So this is not meant for any kind of distance. It's meant for up close and personal. But anyway, domestic violence has been a part of me, and a lot of people say uh, once they understand that my mother was a victim, my ex-wife was a victim, I was a victim because this one woman she took my gun. We were breaking up, we were parting ways, and we had all the money settled up and everything, and then uh, I had my bags and everything was all packed and ready to go the next morning because I was getting ready to get out, and then um, I heard a lot of moving around upstairs in the room where my bags were. And then shortly thereafter, I go up, and she's outside. And I said, "What are you doing?" She turns towards me with my gun. I see the gun, and I duck, and she fires. I ran back in the house. I called 911, and that's what started everything from there. And I was the victim because I called first. So, ladies or men, if you're a victim of domestic violence, remember this: it's who reports first. Who reports first on 911 is the victim. Remember that. So, thanks for joining me. We'll be right back.